Guys, welcome back. We've got a fun one today. I've got Coach Sam Smith and Colleen Fotsch on the call. And um, number one, if you're curious if that's a pull up bar or some kind of a laundry rack or something behind Colleen, it is in fact a parallel bar system that you said Magna, right? Magna produced it for you. So when
Yeah.
Colleen was training for the game, she needed parallel bars. And so they built her these parallel bars and she's had them in the apartment for a little bit now. And this is just for the virus time, right? This is not for like the last 9 months, right?
No, no, no. And unfortunately, I think probably best that I don't try and use them in my apartment. But a drying rack is a good idea. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Might use it as that.
yeah. Leave it to me for efficient slash procrastination type ideas. I wanted to have you guys both on because one, a lot of people look up to both of you guys for how you approach this thing called fitness and competitive fitness, and life for that matter. I also wanted to have you guys on because I think you can provide a lot of interesting commentary around not only the virus, but what happens if. So we're going to try to kind of bob and weave our way through this conversation with uncertainty as part of it. So, kind of where I thought would be fun to start would be Colleen. You were just reposted by CrossFit Games, but the reason I think that's interesting is because you posted about your pull-up bar in your doorway that you have just a little bit of fear about that pull-up bar coming out from the door. And I thought it was an interesting metaphor for, are you really cool and calm and kind of joking about this virus? And I don't mean joking like not taking it seriously. I mean staying nice and calm and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Or are you a bit more nervous about, well, this thing could take a long time to get fixed, we might not have competitions, etc.? Like how are you feeling in this moment?
I think as cliche as it sounds, all I'm trying to do right now is take it day to day. Some days I'm a lot more calm about it. Some days, um, a lot more anxious. I think having Sam and I have had a lot of good chats about the what ifs, and I think it's been really beneficial to go down both of those paths and you know play out, okay, what if the games does happen, what's that going to look like with training and the sanctionals fitting into that right beforehand, and the reality of what if it doesn't happen, and what if this year kind of just ends up being a wash, more or less. Not, there's still tons of progress made, but like competition wise, if the games doesn't happen. And I think that really helped give me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still um very nervous about it, but I think what I'm trying to do is, me worrying about it day to day is only going to drain me of energy that I need to put into things that are going to continue to make me better. And so I think that really helped, just like playing out both of the scenarios. So, whatever does happen, because it's not in any of our control at this point, I think that really gave me peace of mind, and just knowing what we're going to do either way, and that there is a plan either way. And it's not just going to be like, well, we'll figure it out once it happens, but like that, we don't know when that date is that they're going to make that decision, but we have a plan in place.
Are you one of those people that prefers to know all the details if possible? Like, are you geared more that way, or are you much more geared to, it is what it is, I'm going to do what's on my training regimen, and whatever happens happens?
I would prefer to know what's going to happen for sure. I really like having a plan.
Hmm.
But I think that's the good thing about, not just this, but well, not that this is good, but CrossFit in general, the uncertainty of not just this right now, but even at the games last year, like not knowing what event was going to happen next. It definitely pulls me out of my comfort zone. So I think if anything, like Sam and I had some great conversations after I competed at Wadapalooza, and a lot of it was, around being mentally tough and being able to stay calm and conserve energy when the environment around you is just ever changing. And so that's kind of like my silver lining out of this, is that my training, I'm still working on the things that I need to work on, but the environment is so different now. So,
Mm.
I'm warming up in my kitchen, and, I'm trying to fit as much equipment out on my balcony as I can, and not letting that, ruffle my feathers, and just focusing on the workout I'm doing now and putting my energy into that instead of other stuff that I can't control.
So, what are some of the things? Because all of us can get angry, upset. I mean, at the drop of a hat, it can happen. What are
Mhm.
some of the strategies that you guys have implemented that you could point your finger at and say that is something that's worked well and that I continuously use to get myself back to either focused or less, I don't know, maybe anxious about things?
I think one big thing that Sam and I continue to talk about, and he's continued to push me to do, is remember why I'm doing this. And I think that allows me to kind of take a deep breath and not get so fixated on, again, all the stuff that's on social media and all the what ifs right now. And that's the thing too. I think it's hard not to, because you can go online and everyone and their mom has I would do it this way. And I think this is going to happen. And I think the games are going to be at this time. And and I definitely had to stop myself and be like, none of that is real. And because I was getting anxious about these make believe things. I'm like, I just need to go back into why I'm doing this, take each workout as it comes. And, because that's all I can do right now. So,
If you were going to say, a big, broad reason as to why you do this, what would that be?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot to it. I would say that I absolutely love competing. I mean, that's first and foremost. I have my entire life. And I love being challenged. I love that CrossFit specifically has pushed me to be, I feel, and continues to push me to be the best version of myself. Because I mean, I think we all love to win. I mean, that's, inherent in athletes and sports in general. But um, I think what I'm really working on right now is seeing seeing where my limits are, and kind of embracing that challenge of knowing that I can exceed those limits.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, yeah.
It's that's such a cool perspective. I know that so many people, I think myself included, I definitely used to think it was about winning, and then at some point, now keep in mind I'm maybe 1/70th as good as you are at CrossFit, so um, I learned that it was actually about the process of learning. That's what I enjoyed the most. And I know, and obviously I'm different than you, but that was such a profound moment when I recognized that was the real case. Sam, how do you reconcile with Colleen, um, who she is as a person, who she is as a competitor, what her past has been, what she's working on now, what she's searching for as a person? I know that's a big question, but what are some of the things that you're working on with her to get her to that ultimate, let's just call it expression of why she's doing what she's doing, pushing those boundaries, learning about herself? It's a big one. I could have asked a far more granular question.
That's all
So
right. I think one of the big things that we continue to work on is identifying areas that we can continue growing in for her in a competitive environment. And if I word that a little bit more clearly, when she's competing, when is she being challenged and in facing something that she has a hard time overcoming? I'm trying to word this eloquently, but just trying to find ways to continue to make her grow through competition, through adversity. So even in her training, creating an experience that really challenges her in areas that need to keep growing. So I think it's inherent in the sport that athletes have to become more resilient at more adversity as they get further into it. So one, understanding that that's inevitable, and then two, trying to cultivate that in training, and then of course it comes in competition, so you're going to be exposed to it, and learning how to cope and mesh with that more effectively.
I love the way that you said that about overcoming adversity. Um, I don't know why. I'm certainly a little bit of a chaotic thinker in my own head, but when you said that, it made me think that this could actually be a very good thing because it makes you overcome some things that you have never even thought about. Is that part of your thinking in this moment, Colleen?
Oh, 100%. I think, especially like I was saying, the conversations we had after Wadapalooza were so much about just my mentality in really tough workouts. Like Sam was saying during a workout when, I mean, we're all uncomfortable in those workouts, but really leaning into that and making the choice to lean into that. And so the cool part about all of this right now is that nothing's stopping me from continuing to practice that. Like, I don't need to, like, I can do that right here in my living room with, like I did this morning with a rower, a kettlebell, and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think it sometimes might be a little, I think it's a little bit easier to tap into that in a competition because there's just more on the line. But I think that's the cool part about it is that I think it's going to be harder for me to make those decisions, when I'm by myself in training in my home. And if I can do that day in and day out here, like then I have that much more confidence to be able to do that, on a competition floor.
Man, this is really good stuff. I'd love to ask you both this question, and I want to ask it in a two-part way. For, let's just call them CrossFitters on the whole, how much of their success is mental versus physical? And then Colleen, for you, how much of your success is mental versus physical? Anybody can go first.
I'll go first. Well, I would say to a point in CrossFit, your physical ability will be more important than your cognitive ability to a point. Then you'll reach a threshold where now if you want to keep rising, your cognitive ability has to become the priority for you to reach the next threshold. So if I was to put it in context for CrossFit, let's say if somebody wants to get to the sanctionals, physical capabilities are arguably more important in my eyes. Like there's a lot of things they have to be able to do physically to get to that point. If somebody wants to get to the games, and this is assuming they can compete in sanctionals, they've done it, then they have to now have cognitive abilities that are the driving force in their design and their training. And I would argue with Colleen, in my eyes, what I put the most emphasis into in her journey is continuing to build her cognitive abilities when she competes, when she trains, because that's going to make her go from here up to here. Physically, we're near our peaks on most levels. There are some things we're continuing to get better at, but a lot of us expressing those peak levels is up here and getting this more seasoned, you could say.
I know that was a good answer because your hand motions were increasingly sizable, Sam. So that was perfect.
I'm
Colleen,
a hands guy.
how would you answer that question, Colleen?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely agree. And I think for me in particular, I view it as, at the games level, everyone's talented and everyone has worked their ass off. And so you can no longer just like lean back on that. So I think at that point, it really is a matter of who wants to hurt more, because we're all gonna like put it out there. But and I think that, you know, choice of how much you want to lean into that discomfort and pain and stuff isn't really physical, or at least for me, it's way more mental. um and so, but that's why I think it's so special, and like competing at that level is so special, that it's not something that can be calculated through, you know, a rowing test necessarily, or a lift. It's and I think that's why those moments are so special, when you really do decide to lay it all out there. um because yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think it's way more mental at that point.
Yeah, I remember some of the early grid conversations, and I thought grid was a cool idea. But I remember thinking to myself, it's very difficult to show resiliency and overcoming in grid. Just like if I'm watching as a
Mhm.
spectator, right? But if you're in the stadium and you see somebody who clearly is in that absolute last ounce of threshold that they have, and they figure out how to do it, or if somebody goes for it and doesn't quite get there, that I always felt was the most compelling thing to watch. And I know that you guys obviously are not watching this, you're in the middle of it, but I have to think that the reason it's so compelling is, to exactly your point, Colleen, is it takes more than what people know that they have. You know what I mean? Like, and that is something that can't be manufactured.
Mhm.
I think that that's such an interesting point. So, Colleen, how would you characterize this type of physical mental game compared to your swimming days? And if anybody doesn't know, you were also a very high level swimmer. How is it the same? How is it different?
I think a few of the things that I've definitely taken from swimming that I think have helped me in my CrossFit career is, I mean, first of all, just the grind of training. So I definitely was used to, you know, long hours of practicing and training and all that stuff, and love competing. So, you know, I wasn't a stranger to the nerves and all that stuff, feeling like you're going to throw up like behind the blocks. And, but I do, but it is so different. And I think this year in particular, I had a lot of like aha moments on um, stuff that I don't know. I think I used to kind of think, you know, well, I competed at this really high level in swimming, so I'm just going to naturally be able to do it in another sport. But they're just so, I mean, obviously, so incredibly different. I think one, in the fact that, you know, one is specializing in one particular thing. And, you know, in swimming, they don't ask you to, it's not a sum of all the swimming events. It's like, okay, well, you're good at this, so you will only do that. And you're just going to keep doing it over and over and over again, and it's never going to change. Whereas CrossFit, obviously, it's like, no, you're going to do the things you're good at, you're kind of good at, and the stuff you suck at. Um, and I think, too, one thing which has definitely made me, or Sam and I talk a lot more about the mental game is, you know, in swimming, my longest races were 50 seconds. So there was no thinking involved. Like once the gun went off at the start, like my body just more or less took over, and then it's done. And I think in CrossFit, there's not necessarily that you're having, you know, like full on conversations with yourself, but you know, uh, the races, so to speak, go from, you know, anywhere from a few seconds to an hour long. And I think so for me, I have to continue to get mentally stronger because you just have more time to think, and, you know, both good and bad. So, um, I think it's been interesting to see, you know, again, like what are some of the good takeaways I've had from swimming, but also the stuff that I just never, not that I was ignoring it, but I just never had to really tap into until now. So, yeah.
So let me ask you guys one more question, and same question to both of you guys. As it relates to training, and let's now put this idea like continual progress, awareness, mental game that you guys are working so hard on. What are you most looking forward to throughout this lockdown period where things are really, really strange? And then what are you most looking forward to once a season, and I'm not sure what season it will be, but when a season reemerges?
You want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. What am I looking most forward to for Colleen? Well, I would say making sure she's healthy because we've been battling with some shoulder issues for a long while. And so that was one of the things that I was actually really excited about, having this forced break for however long it is, because we needed to get her shoulder better. And the only way it was going to get better was with rest and less intensity. So this was a blessing for her in that perspective, but it didn't take away from things we could keep working on and growing with, because as she's talked about, a lot of it is working on things up here and becoming more equipped in her head when she does compete and when she does train. So that's been a great positive through this whole thing, is we're getting time to heal and better prepare her for the next endeavor. And then when it does happen again, I'm just excited for her to get chances to challenge herself, not just physically, but mentally as well. Because right now, a lot of the competitions we do, it's more of us assessing and looking at how did we handle it up here? Because physically, like I said, we're near our peaks, so we know what our capabilities are to a degree. Of course, there's always that little room for magic, but we're looking more at, okay, well, how did we approach it? How did we execute? And how do we get better for the following attempt? So I'm excited to allow her to get out there and express that and be challenged in more than physical capabilities.
What do you think, Colleen?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely with getting healthy has been a really nice break to just be able to rest in the places I've needed to rest. I think I'm also kind of what I touched on before, excited about Sam and I talked about like winning mentally. So each day, like seeing if I can win my workouts mentally. I mean, obviously Sam gives me goal times, paces to hit, stuff like that. But for me, like actually I've started to journal a little bit, like at the end of the week, about my workouts throughout the week, and not necessarily about like how many reps I got or times or whatever, but like the thoughts that were going through my head during the workout. And I think that's also held me a little more accountable too, because if I do start going down that road of just more negative self-talk, I know that I can't just like leave it there. I'm going to have to kind of come to it at the end of the week and be like, okay, why was I in that mindset? Like, did I stop myself and like change it up, or did I keep going down that road? And so that's been kind of cool to just check in with that more and hold myself accountable a little bit more on that. And then, I mean, once the competition season starts again, I'm just excited to test all of that and use what I learned at Wodapalooza and what I've continue to have learned, just each day of training as this thing's kind of gone on. Yeah.
I think something that's always helped me, that when you said that made me think about it, is every time I ask those questions, simply putting the stuff on the table starts to dissipate the stress around it. Just as a true hardwiring of how our brains work. That's always been so beneficial to me. But my dumb ass, I forget to do it sometimes. So, so I'm sure that that's been a really cool learning experience. But guys, we got to call it there for now. I think it'd be really fun to do this every once in a while, just especially as you guys are moving through training. I really appreciate you coming on and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of interesting ideas and things to think about, not just through the virus, but also when the competition season comes back. So thanks, guys, so much. And we will see everybody the next time.
Thank you.
Oof.